peeps, it's a long time since you've seen me. I'm still alive. I've lived through COVID. Yes, I know you haven't seen me for like 4 or 5 months, and most of the time I'm actually outside in some location in Finsbury Park. Here's what, I'm still in Finsbury Park, but I'm inside. We're down here inside at the drumming club. As you can see, drums around us. It's a nice place. It's a kind of community centre.
Yo.
They do many things here. But today I brought some friends along. I got a bit fed up just standing in the park talking to the camera and the pigeons and the birds. So I decided to talk to some people today. So how about introducing yourself to that strange object out there, which is the camera where people are looking at you.
Okay.
How do you?
Hello, camera. I'm delighted to see you. I haven't seen you before, and my name is May.
Hello, camera. I feel exactly the same, but slightly different. My name's Graham.
Hi everybody, I am Shaz and I am very happy to be here today and be a part of this panel. Thank you.
And I go by the name of Red 5599, Baron Samedi. I'm not wearing my top hat today. Oh, by the way, yeah, this is the new hat I'll be wearing. No more cap on camera. And today's subject, we've got many subjects, and these people here have so many things to say about it. And the thing that's hit in the headline at the moment today is about the police and the terrible mess that the British police is in at the moment. I say women's lives matter because the women, all of a sudden they realize how negative the police force has been against women. What has anybody got to say about that? Do you support the way the police treat women? Remember that protest down at the park where you had that woman who the police not had the knee on her head, and you know where that comes from. But they literally held her down, and she was looking up, and that picture is flashed across. And Carissa Dix, unfortunately, she's a woman, powerful woman, head of the police force, is actually doing nothing in order to mitigate or to change policies of the police. She's more or less just saying, carry on. And women are in a terrible position at the moment where we have women commanders of police actually saying that if a policeman approaches them, jump on a bus.
This is the stupid bit. Because yeah, well, I'm just going to interject there. The new information that is now being given to women, if you are approached by a lone police officer and feel unsafe, call 999. Like, hello? You are the police. So my thing is, why are we feeling unsafe around the people that are paid to protect and serve? So basically, if we are unsafe, we are feeling unsafe around these people or are not protected by these people, then what are they doing in this job? Why are we letting police continue to police our streets, our people that are going to go out and commit crimes like, you know, any other normal person or criminal out there, and get away with it for this long, and now this has come to light. Coincidentally, it is a white female, you know, so this is also being brought to light. Had maybe it been a black female, I don't think it would have got this much coverage. I don't think.
Can I add to that, because some of the women who are advocating for the change also brought up. Do you remember the 2 black women that got killed in? I can't remember where it was, where the officers actually took pictures of the naked bodies.
Yes,
right. So this has now been brought up in relation to the whole protest about the whole police force needs to be restructured, changed, operation procedures, all should be all new. I mean, root and branch changes. I think the current structure is institutionally racist. right?
Agree.
Sexist, homophobic, right? It should be destroyed and a new system put in,
Built, that's right.
Forget about this thing they call what do you call it? Inquiry. That's like sometimes kicking it in the grass. It might take 10 years for this inquiry to think through, and at the end of it, they just chuck it in a corner. But women are frightened, you know.
But it's interesting because my most recent experience of the police is very much the opposite of everything that you were presenting. We had an incident here where the police officers had to come because one woman was very, very, very much out of control. And 2 officers came and they got quite a bit of abuse from the woman who was out of control. Those 2 guys, the police officers, were the kindest, most patient. It took a long time. They were to that woman. They were almost like a big brother, a little brother. They were just absolutely nice. So in some ways, I sort of distance myself from always picking out the things that are always wrong. There's a whole fusion of different things going on. What you try and do is separate and look. The things that are working, you support to the hilt. The things that are not working, you try and separate.
Yes.
But you don't demonize something, I think, and then trying to restructure everything. That'll never happen. There are so many in any one situation that are killing themselves trying to do a good job.
Yeah, no, I agree with you.
And I sort of think you have to always look at the positive and the negative and keep a balance all the time to get at the truth of sort of something. Because if you focus on what is wrong, you will find it.
Oh yes.
You will find it. It'll be there. It'll be there. You have to, for everything that you see that isn't right, you also have to look around to see what is its balance.
Can I just interject there? Sorry, I just feel like I feel like where we are now as a society, not just the police, I feel like the government as well as a whole, you know, with the enforcing the vaccines and all sorts of stuff. I just feel like we, as a society, you know, we are relying on normal people like me and you to go and police a whole city. Now, this normal police officer like me and you who had a job to protect and serve, he chose to commit a crime while in that. So he abused his
But the interesting thing is that he chose to commit it. A crime doesn't happen in that moment. I think a serious like rape, murder, whatever, happens in as it's happening. But I think it possibly takes 20, 30 years for the whole process of somebody to remove themselves from being human. And at all those stages, that person must have had men and women at either side who had each moment had a chance to change the balance. So it's always really a question of balance and a question of opportunity. There is opportunity at every single moment for everybody to reshape. And I think that it's a question of trying to be aware of actually how much power people have. Every single person has power to rebalance at every moment through each and every day. And you would sort of think that the collective ability to edge something into being gentler and being nicer and being slightly more efficient, where the vast majority of us are far greater than the few police officers. So when you sort of say that you know, our people sort of think that, you know, this party have the power. There is so much power that people have in their moment by moment to humanize and to keep people being sort of like to bring down aggression.
May I interject at this
Yeah.
point?
Yeah, sorry.
Balance is a wonderful word. And as a child, I was taught to balance. But I was taught more than balance. I was taught to respect authority, look up to a certain group of people who are respectable, not because they earn respect by giving money to homeless people, but because they wore suits and ties and they had power and money and influence. They were royal and they were of great importance. And this was instilled into me on a very deep conditioning level. But unfortunately, because I was brought up as white working class male, and that's why I first of all wanted to sort of keep out at the beginning of this, because I realised the very minor privilege on this level. But
Minor privilege? Is that white privilege?
yes, it is. It is very much so.
Minor or
And
major? There's a major or minor.
No, I'll explain why it's minor. Because I'm going to.
Always make me curious.
No,
Always make me curious.
no.
I'm so not aware of colour.
Excuse me. Let me out myself
So you
on
don't
camera.
see me then?
Look,
That's different to you.
may I? I want to say something which I rarely say, and which
In the
most
sense of
people
that
don't know
being
about.
kind of-
I don't think it's been different to people.
Can I say something which I don't say to many people? I have been brutally assaulted by the police. I'm a white male, right? Therefore, I'm in a slightly more rare category, right, of being assaulted. But some people can say, well, I would have chosen to be in the situation of being an activist, therefore I deserve what I get, according to right-wing bigots, according to people who've lived a very conventional life and have been either slightly privileged or, in some circumstances, greatly privileged. The house and car owners who see themselves as minor respectable figures, maybe lower middle class. Now, I want to say that I know what it's like to have my experience denied, right, about this subject when I've been physically assaulted in public and in the police station, and I'd had it photographed and it was dismissed. This was the miners' strike, 1985, yes. And because it's taboo, I've kept it to myself. Most of the taboo is actually fear of a range of consequences. But I'm now going to take a risk and put myself forward, because this is a very serious subject we're dealing with, and I have only a small idea of what other groups of people who are less privileged than me, who have a darker skin than me, and who have and who are women and suffering day-to-day misogyny on a variety of levels, homophobia, etc., etc. Because I can use some left-wing theory here. I know it's not fashionable, but we can talk here on the one side about balance, but the reality of power, right, and privilege, right. So we can. So now we start off with the main privilege, right, of the ruling class, of the power holders, right, whatever you want to call them, the powerful people, rulers, royals, whatever, arms dealers, multi-millionaires, the Bezoses of the world, the Johnsons of the world. we're talking real power, and we're talking about the powerlessness. We all know who's powerless, and we don't need to be a genius to know that when we walk over somebody lying on the street without a blanket. Now, I don't want to get into this divisiveness of black versus white, because that's for UKIP and the tabloid media to deal with. That's for the bigots who voted for Boris Johnson, right, to deal with. That's that's to do with their lack of education.
Hold on a second.
I want to say that
lots of people voted for Boris Johnson that are not bigots. You can't just say that all the bigots. Lots of different people voted for Boris Johnson.
Did
you vote for Boris Johnson?
I didn't.
Okay.
Congratulations.
But nonetheless, I respect the choice.
I'm going to
of
admit
other
I
people.
didn't, because
I respect that.
I remember the miners' strike, and I remember being in the south of England and visiting the north of England, right? Poor white, right? Miners. Some people, they said they earned a lot of money relatively, but they are now living in quite enormous poverty, right? Deindustrialization. They were brutally, for 1 year, there was a civil war in Britain, right? Not in Northern Ireland, not in Africa, not in Ireland, not in the colonies, but in Britain. It's all been washed away and forgotten about. But it happened under Margaret Thatcher. And the miners were starved back to work. The police force were militarised and brutally beaten. In fact, some miners died, white male miners. Maybe their grandchildren voted Conservative due to some idiotic ideas of patriotism and royalism and nonsense like that. But I want to go back to use some theory here about power and privilege, right? And the socialist model versus the capitalist model. The working class versus the ruling class. It hasn't disappeared, it's the same now. And that brings me on to the universal credit
What
cuts.
about the
Is it going to make working class women, right, safer? Will they have to do what many student women do, sell their bodies? Here we are. I shall leave it at that. But my experience, right, of assault is very terrible and traumatizing. And I know that I'm on the top part of the trauma. And I know that there are many very poor people, right, whom we see on the streets who've had a lot more trauma and a lot more violence done to them. And they are often called mentally ill. Well, we know who's made them ill. The people in power and privilege, and their very nice deniers who always choose the wrong side and always agree with the people in power because they have a fetish about people who wear ties.
Just before we go on to that subject, and the last thing on the police thing before we move on to that, we will discuss that. Now you talk about the power. Now, one thing that shakes me to the core in relation to the police. Now, I've been through my youthhood, from school up to now. I'm a mature person. But what makes me shake is when I hear Clarissa Dick says that she's going to stop and search every black youth. And in fact, she's given a figure of how many of the black youth of England, that they've actually shaken down so far. And that interaction with the police, they had a policy one time, right? Any interaction with the police, they would take that youth's details down, and once you are now on record, right, you are now limited for life. Criminalized. There was one time where we had officers went around actually getting into confrontation with youths in order to have them taken in order to get the DNA so they can increase their database. Now, what have you heard so far about the DNA database? Did they tell you they destroy it? Did they tell you they keep it? Now, they don't only take your fingerprints, right? They take your DNA. And there was a time when police officers was going about deliberately doing that to the black youths. But what is more current now, and which the current Commissioner of Police said, they're going to stop and search every black youth, and they've managed to gone through 75% of that, and it shakes me to the core, because once you go on record, your life is limited. And the final point on that, right, there's youths of my age back in time, there was a thing called SUS, right, and just last month or so, there was three people or so that they were exonerated, that this rogue police officer at the time who just went about arresting black people just for the sake of it, there were 3 or 4 of them that spent time in prison. Those people, those black men at the time, their own family didn't believe them, but only recently they were exonerated and compensation will be paid. Now, what is interesting, right? Those folks of my age and the generations before, where they have been wrongfully arrested, right? Wrongfully limited in their life expectancy, because once you have a criminal record, right, you can go no further. Now I hear you can't go to university, right, because they check your criminal record, so your education is cut down, right? You can't go to America. There's loads of things. But back to a class action, going back in a little bit, and those of you out there who has been affected, right, by a SUS law, which you did nothing, right, and it's curtailed your life, everybody should get together and put in a class action for damages, because it killed your prospects in life, and your outcome in life is totally different. Unfortunately with G, his white privilege was revoked in 1985.
I was always on as a working class boy. I was always standing on one leg.
Oh,
And having been and talking about the gender privilege as a child of a single parent, remember in the days when it was not fashionable. In the bad old days, in the flag waving early 60s, but this started me off, or also as a sort of
But G, talking about the one-parent family,
one-legged gender privilege.
let's get onto your subject. Talking about the
My white
one-parent.
privilege, yes, I admit I have it, although not that much. I wasn't born in the Celtic
like,
Isle.
what is that?
I was
used
not
it before.
born in the Celtic Isle. My family were Anglo-Indian, and they believed themselves to be very loyal to Britain, and they had the privilege, servants and that, and they were the lower middle class to middle class in India. And when they came to Britain, they became, well, even though my grandfather had bought a house, working class. A big shock to them. In fact, my grandfather, who was very proud, he felt himself to be a brown Englishman that was more British than a white Englishman, because he was brought up like the 1920s and 30s conservative, small conservative UKIP mentality. He was shocked because he was asked if he rode on an elephant or he lived in a tree. He worked in Brook Bonds as a translator, so he could speak to the
Brook Bonds,
Indian
is that
stuff.
the tea? Is that the
Brook
tea?
Bond tea. Yes. So when he came over, he worked.
Isn't tea?
That's why the England.
He reproduced his English colonial
tea
life in India.
Isn't tea the quintessential thing about being English?
But that's not English.
It certainly is, and that's why
I
a
know.
British
It's
Army officer, right, a naval officer, who visited the Chinese royal palace, stole some cuttings, took it to India, planted it, and it took off. In fact, now tea is grown in India, but it's a metaphor for England, just like a lion, which don't exist anywhere in Europe, and only existed after Richard III, the Lionheart, came back from to reclaim his rightful throne. You'll have to consult Shakespeare about this. To consult his rightful throne after the Crusades. There he saw a lion. Now lions and eagles and teeth have been co-opted as metaphors, right, by Rupert Murdoch sandwiches to become British.
We're gonna go on the next program. We're gonna go into the history and what have you. But let's get back up to that's 10th century. Let's get back up to date now.
I'm sorry, I'm a little bit educastrated.
Right, the one-parent family. Remember, you can't claim, you don't get any allowances for any more than 2 children. You got the bedroom tax if you got an extra room. And what's coming up next? They're taking £20 away, which they've given us
During COVID,
which they know they needed. As you say, you step over people on the street, right? Now, tell me what you feel is going to happen. Oh, it started.
As a teenager, for 4 years, I was one of the people that I now step over.
How do you mean? Oh.
Okay.
Because
I understand what
I
you're saying.
was in the prone position, right? And now I step other people who are in a prone position, which I was myself when I was a teenager, and according to the Daily Mail and the Sun, was meant to be having a whale of a time. And that was in the 1960s when there was full employment.
Alright, but remember for COVID, remember they took the homeless off the street and they put them in hotels or places or what have you. But,
Well done!
Everywhere.
Thank you, Boris!
Not everywhere. I saw homeless people still in the street.
but now,
So how many? What about the rest?
No.
What did they choose? Did they do a raffle?
COVID is over. Well, kind of over.
No, but I'm saying I still saw homeless people sleep in the street during COVID. So where was the hotel for?
COVID is not over because
is it just me, or did you not see homeless people still sleeping on the street?
Right here, look, right here.
people
the
in
people around here was
Africa
nothing.
have not been
This
vaccinated.
is hotel, bro.
COVID is not
To
over.
be fair, it's
Yeah.
hotel strip.
Yeah.
But
Until everyone is vaccinated, COVID will not be over.
All right, Graham, tell us your feelings about the cuts. Right now, today is the first week in. Oh, what's the date today? Somebody.
the 5th of October. The 4th.
I always used to do a check. Today's date is Monday, folks, and it's October the 4th.
Dino Fawkes Day.
No, that's 5th of November, isn't it?
That's every day.
All right.
Boris's friend.
So,
Easy on the lovely Boris.
right. So today is Monday, the 4th of October, which is the first week in October. Now, during this
You're
week,
bringing tears to my glass eyes.
Do you know his dad wrote a book called The Virus?
No.
Boris Johnson's
Boris
dad.
Johnson's dad.
It's called The Virus.
Is it in?
It's a lot to do with COVID.
Okay.
Yeah, you should look about that book.
I don't really want to get my information on social media. I know he wrote a book on Winston Churchill. His
idol, hero. Yes, he worships
God,
him.
he's
Yes.
God, basically.
Yes.
Either he wrote it or it was written under his sort of. If Boris Johnson wrote about, and he also wrote.
No, not him, his
book
father.
Oh, his father.
His father.
I would like to meet the person Boris Johnson paid in Eton and maybe in Oxford, right? It could have been the same person or another person. I don't know. Could have been a
But
butler.
got his degree.
Who actually did his degree for him.
But Dave
I
Cameron could have done it.
Listen, I don't believe that man went to university because of the man. Yes, that comes out of his mouth. Yeah, that's it. That's a good impression of him. And the messy hair. Like, how can you take
No, no,
someone
no,
like
messy
that professionally?
Well-
And you know, it's things like this, like you know, that
you
you're.
get some messy hair.
Well, you wouldn't. You know,
Messy
you go
hair
home.
versus Brill cream.
Actually, we are very interested.
I prefer the Brill cream.
Because right at this moment, right, they're having their annual Conservative conference,
Oh, good for
and
you.
it's gone off the news. No one's even talking about it, right? Because of the police thing, right? But what is it you think? Look, we got the petrol strike out there, right? We got the COVID thing, COVID passport. So what do you think how is Boris running the country? Well, we've got a
He's
clown as
doing a
prime
very
minister,
poor
right?
No, he's definitely a clown. You know, I'm not even gonna lie. It got to the point where I don't even watch this guy on TV no more. Like, you can't even. When I see clips of him on social media, like, I look and I think, is this man seriously running the country? Like, you have to question yourself. Even like what he said, I would like to see who he paid to do his degree, because I just, yeah, he's definitely a clown. I can't take him seriously,
Right.
and that hair is very unprofessional for me.
Now,
Well, I'm here going to admit that I did somebody's essay in university for
We know it's
£25, but don't tell anybody.
We know it's done. We
Oh.
know people do stuff like this.
all right. Now, a good example of how the government is actually losing power, from my point of view, is the panic we have with the petrol.
Do you think that's them losing power?
Well, people don't believe in them, right? Now, during the main lockdown and COVID, they had at least 50% of England following the rules, you know. But
Yeah.
now they said, there's plenty of petrol, don't panic. And everybody went, oh, petrol. And up, it's a week later, and now the people who really
Panic buying.
yeah, the people who really need
But it's
petrol.
like reverse psychology, no? Don't panic and everybody panics.
Well, we are we are in a very serious situation at the moment, because the people who really need petrol now can't get to fill up their tanks.
And this
Right,
is
because
the
these
thing.
were the nice people who decided let all the panickers go along. It'll soon die down. But guess what?
It's still going on.
There's still the queue. So we're about to enter a catastrophic phase if those normal people who not the panickers now can't get petrol. Right now, so today now they said the army now will be delivering the petrol tankers and stuff, and hopefully.
Oh, that's what they said.
that should ease.
That's a lie.
But
What's the army going to do? How are they going to help?
that's exactly it. But can you believe it, right? And then what did they say about Christmas? There might not be the stuff in the shops for Christmas.
What, food you mean?
Yeah, because the delivery
Well,
lorries.
this is the thing, because I just feel like Britain's made a flipping huge tits up with this flipping whole Brexit stuff. Like, literally, like, you've just gone in, like, you've had us on this Brexit stuff for years and years and years and years, and now we finally Brexited. You know, our passports have changed colour and all the rest of it, blah, blah, blah. But now it's affecting us in the sense that what people don't understand is England is not a country that many things are grown here. A lot of the stuff that we have are exported and imported from other countries.
Like tea.
Like tea, and even other European countries, yeah? So why did they not think that, hold on maybe, I don't know what deal they made, because I don't follow the news and I don't follow the government, because I don't believe in them. Yeah? All my hope since the COVID stuff kicked off in the government is totally lost for good. So this is just another error that they're showing, that their incompetency to officially run the country or run us as a government. And this is why when you started talking about the police and stuff, I just think as a society now, I think we're way past being governed by regular people like us. Because think about it, Boris Johnson is a regular person. These police officers are regular people. Like, you know, I think
Boris
we're past...
Johnson is a regular person.
Not, well, maybe not regular,
a
but
regular
Now,
aristocrat.
not regular, but you know what I mean?
Our
If
aristocrats
someone as
are regular
stupid as him can run England,
Do you want to be?
then, you know, there's people like me and you that have way more sense than him,
Okay.
even with a degree or without a degree, whatever you want to say. I think we're at the stage where we should be self-governing.
Okay, I thought you was gonna say aliens could think it.
No.
Like you were saying, all the people could do
Self-governing.
it. So
The people need to be governed
But-
ourselves.
But in a way, I
Are aliens related to aristocrats?
Graham, give that Graham,
Even Alistair Crowley may have difficulty.
Graham, listen, give that camera a rest. It
It
does, it does,
Give
it
me a chance to
Just give
speak.
it a rest. Yeah?
So what do you think then, mate, in the sense of
I like that
self-governing?
when you're talking about government. I mean, I think that you've got it right. Self-government.
Yeah, it's time for that, it's
But
finished.
it goes back to each and every person can govern themselves
Individually.
so infinitely better. And it still adds up. It's what we do
Communities,
here.
yeah,
It's what we are doing
But this
here.
is the thing, and this is what people
And
don't believe
it
in.
seems like almost like a form of chaos. but it actually knits together, and everybody is sort of like doing it. Everybody has so
Small
much
communities
more
of it,
power.
yes. But I think we need to make larger communities. I mean, like you're saying, there is small governed
But
communities within communities.
it's sort of linking together, but it can.
Well, we need to make it link as a whole. And what we need to do, I feel like, as a people, we need to realise our power is strength in numbers, because the government
Yes.
and the powers that be make up not even 5%, 1%, and we are the majority.
As Jeremy Corbyn always said, the 1% versus the 99%.
Right, and I feel like if we as the people believed in ourselves more as the 99% that
Yeah.
hold
Yeah.
the actual
Yeah.
power, in not voting, not in
Yeah.
voting for these people or protesting. No, I'm not saying protesting
Not
is a good thing.
Yeah, I'm glad you
But-
said not protesting.
But
And
not
a
A
protesting.
terrible thing to do.
I mean,
Okay.
Listen,
literally,
Mr.
like,
Murdoch, stop it.
It does.
I mean, like
Easy.
taking total control and saying, we're not going to pay tax no more as a whole.
Yeah.
We're not
Yeah.
going to do this.
Yeah.
We're not going to go to
Yeah.
work
Yeah.
every day and
Yeah.
work for this parents'
Yeah.
money as a whole.
There's nothing wrong with taxes.
I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying example.
No, I want to ask you a question.
No,
Just a minute.
okay.
Do you- no, I'm asking you a
Okay.
question. Right,
10 minutes.
right. Taxes are very useful as an engine of redistribution of wealth. which I think-
Ideas are very useful. as
Redistribution
Redistribution of
is a
wealth.
good thing. From the wealthy and powerful to the poor and powerless. A redistribution.
No, but if we
You know what that means, don't you?
restructure, no, I'm not saying
Well,
that.
okay, when you cut up a cake, right, right, I'll use a simpler one. You distribute, right, the cake, right.
Right.
So instead of the one person, as you said, 1%, and the 99%, right. Now I'm being quite simplistic here. Yeah, it's not mathematics class. So those portions, right, of that cake, right. So redistribution means equalising that cake out.
Yes.
Now, so tax in itself is not wrong, but
The way
there
the
is a
government are
difference.
taxing us is
Now,
wrong. That's what I'm
there is a
saying.
difference between regressive and progressive tax.
Okay.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes,
No,
yes.
I want to give you a
I have no
understand.
clue. What
I
is
understand.
regressive and progressive
I
tax?
Okay.
Graham, you're talking to me as well. So
Okay, sorry. Listen, I'm the man. I have testosterone.
Yeah, go
Yeah,
on.
that's what the police officer
No,
said.
not there.
That's what the police
I know
officer
that's
said.
there.
And
That's
then
right.
not
No,
there.
I
And then
want
not
to
there.
talk to her as well, not just swing round to me. You got to do it. Yeah, come on. This is comedy.
You got to swing both ways.
Yeah,
Right.
both sides, left and right.
You're getting.
You're right.
You have not seen me
Yeah,
naked.
yeah.
You do not know if that's true.
No.
Now,
God.
We are evolving into comedy. Yeah, go on.
yes, exactly. Now,
Regressive and progressive tax.
Now, just generalising here. Progressive taxation, right? Roughly is corporation tax, wealth tax, death taxes on an enormously, fantastically wealthy people. Corporation tax, for instance, the taxes on multi-million. Multi-millionaires.
Yeah, 1%.
I'm sorry, my arithmetic isn't good enough to actually know whether I'm talking about billionaires or millionaires,
Yeah.
because there's lots of zeros.
And what's the label that you have on that?
Now, regressive tax are taxes like VAT and
Why do you say they're regressive?
let me finish, because I'm going to say
National
something
insurance.
different.
National insurance.
And national insurance, who hit the poor more, right? This is why Boris Johnson chose not to increase corporation tax on his millionaire backers, right? And Rupert Murdoch's millionaire friends, right? But chose, right, to actually increase tax on poor people, like with Margaret Thatcher and the poll tax, or the community charge. It was, so taxation itself was not a bad thing, but it's a regressive tax And that's what's so unfair. But then again, why would the Conservative Party do anything which was fair, which was against the interests of the multimillionaires? And I don't just mean the multimillionaires in this country, because I have no feelings of nationality or boundaries. I'm talking about the multimillionaire class, right, that rule the world. Just like the working class and poor, right, or as Marx would say, the people who sell their labour are international and have no such things as boundaries. What they do, because even if you study normal capitalist economics, they don't talk about nation states. All that is for your sun readers. What they talk about is money, right? And multimillionaires will go anywhere around the world where they can exploit people. So if they find they can find that mines are cheaper in Indonesia than in Yorkshire, they'll go there. And if they find that mines are cheaper in the Congo or in Bolivia, they'll go there. Because nationalism, right, is only divide and rule. It's pettiness it's a petty way
And
of...
what do you think about this increase in the wages of the drivers, which they say the drivers are now getting extra money?
I think it's a good promise which is going to be broken, because it's a promise of jam tomorrow. Just like Brexit was as well. Do you remember the buses? Do you remember the buses and how the NHS was going to be fixed with a little bit of xenophobia and anti-European racism?
£36 million.
Well, we've had the anti-European racism. That's why a lot of Polish lorry drivers who've been abused don't want to come to Britain to be abused again, but they can go to France.
And be abused.
And be abused there. This trickle-down money, because I remember Margaret Thatcher called it trickle-down.
Never does.
And Boris Johnson is calling it levelling up. So he's changed the word from trickling down to levelling up, right? And pretending it's new. This is what the tricks they always make. They are not going to see it.
Hartlepool,
the poor in Hartlepool who love waving their flags,
by taking away the £20 a
will
week,
not get any money.
by taking away the £20
They
a week,
become poorer.
by increasing the gas and
Leveling
electricity, right?
Yes, leveling down inflation.
And a lot of people got to get rid of their cars because of this new ultra-low zone. It's now been extended out, and by the 25th of this month, if your car doesn't fall into...
Well, that is a good thing, because an attempts to actually reduce pollution are a good thing, because pollution affects the poor much more than the rich, who if they do live in this country and not some West Indian island which they own, like Virgin Islands, or what's that, Mustique, right? Then actually they still live in the countryside and not
Exactly
in the
what you
large
said, in
cities.
countryside.
So I don't want to play the pollution. I don't want to criticise the
low emission,
the low emission zone and play that against
Mm.
people's poverty, because people who are suffering with poverty are suffering with pollution.
Mm.
But you see, the rich have no interest in cutting pollution because they don't really suffer with pollution. They don't, because that's why they can talk the green talk.
Mm.
They can say many things. They can say that they're the party of the working class. Wonderful.
Alright, let me change the subject.
I'm sure they've read Marx just as much as, or maybe more, than most of the very poor people that work in non-unionised zero-hour contracts jobs, which they don't have enough time to even breathe.
Alright, let me change the subject slightly to a bit more seasonal. So, I feel it's like the first days of autumn. What are you guys looking forward to? Or what about the winter thing and the poor people who's got to eat or heat?
Well, the government do a scheme, a heater scheme, a winter heating scheme.
Can you get on it?
You're on a system, because if you fall under universal credit, or you're a single parent, or you're above a certain age, you'll get a winter payment, which is to help.
Let me
keep
ask you this
yourself.
question.
I've
Have you known?
received it.
Okay, I was going to ask.
That's why I have this information. So
Okay.
they are bringing in some schemes to apparently help people, but I feel like with the government, they cause a problem and then, we're going to find a solution, but you've already caused the problem, so you definitely need to find a solution.
But Queenie, when I say you're smarter than the average cookie, because not everybody would know how to navigate to get this money, and a lot of the things that they say you can have a grant for, what have you. Sometimes when you go, it's actually they've given out all the money already, or the application date is gone, or what have you. So again, and for the people, most of the people we see out on the street and who's going to get caught up in these changes, they're not au fait with how the system works. The system is designed.
And remember, women who are on the street are 1,000 times
More likely to be
vulnerable.
vulnerable. More vulnerable.
More vulnerable, and I shall leave it at that without going down the more nasty and tabloidy route.
Right, yeah, and so what happens there? So you've been taught from day one, if we talk about the working class and what have you, that, and when I go back to the black youths, from day one, the police, the system is telling you that you can't go any further than this. Oh, by the way, in Wales they put up a statue of a black
The
teacher.
first black head teacher.
And we are going. October is officially the Black History Month there in October.
This is now.
So if we do this next week, then we'll add some Black History facts. And because we're in Finsbury Park here, we got some things about Black history there, right? But the way things are with these offers that the government give, only about 10% of the people would actually get it. Remember when
or
they
have access to it even, because another thing, sorry, let me interject, another thing they like to do is, they have all this funding and all this money tucked away for people to do this and fund that.
Just
And
a
then
minute,
they, sorry, can I just finish
I'm
what
trying
I'm
to
saying?
find where that money is.
And
I know it's somewhere.
before you know,
down the
it's
back
like,
of the sofa.
what they do is they kind of don't promote the scheme.
I can't
So
find
people
it.
tend to be either unaware of it, or they kind of withhold it, or maybe, people don't have access to these things. And I feel like we live, Britain's not a third world country, it's a very privileged
It's a
country.
third world country for a lot of people.
For a lot of people, but not for me.
Well,
So
you,
I have experienced that, and I look at it. What you were saying about the homeless people, my take on it is this: with a lot of homeless people, a lot of homeless people have lived regular lives just like me and you. Yeah, they've been law-abiding citizens. They've worked. Some of them have degrees. I've spoke to a lot. I've worked with people like this as well. These people, the reason why a lot of them live like this is because they don't want no part of society, and that's my belief. I've had a lot of conversations with. They switch off to this government, this ruling society, this rich versus poor, and educated versus.
I want to ask you a question, yeah, because this is a really interesting question, and I don't have a chance to have a reasonable discussion with the unfortunately many working class people who should be together on our side and are able to discuss with. That they become very irrational and angry and on very. Often their anger, which is directed at all sorts of different enemies and people next door to them and things like that. And but I'd like to know, right? Why do you think that people like yourself, who should be the most politicized, are often the least politicized? What is putting you off? Do you think that the politics is to do with people in power that have ties and blue cream?
No, I don't feel it is that. I just feel like these people, who are they to kind of make decisions on how other people should live?
But don't you see your even what you're doing now as a form of politicisation?
No, this is just my opinion.
So you don't see yourself as
I'm not
the
enforcing
granddaughter
my-
of Nelson Mandela, who is going to transform this part of the world.
Transform, yes, but I mean,
Yeah, why do you look down on yourself?
I wouldn't say look down on myself, but I wouldn't look at myself as what you were saying, politicianing. That's not a word I would use. But yes, I would say I would like to be a person that's considered that would like to see a reform and change within my society. And if I can be a part of that change, I would be gladly to be a part of that. But like I said, if we as individuals don't realise that we have the power to change that, then this won't happen.
In 10 years ago, Jamaica had its first woman prime minister was elected. You know, in a very patriarchal society.
Many years ago, America
Fantastic.
had their first black president, and when do you think England will get to see our first black prime minister? I won't hold my breath. I really would not hold my breath to say that I would live to see England have a black. And when I say black, I don't mean mixed race, a white mom and a black dad. I mean 2 black parents. Yeah, fully black. I don't mean like Meghan Markle, who also has a black mom and a white dad. I mean a full black person in,
Actually,
power.
we're closer to having a brown one.
A brown
he's,
one.
He's
An
chancellor.
Asian guy.
He's chancellor of the Exchequer, and he's right now today doing the rounds.
The British Empire was basically based on the ideology of white nationalism, white supremacy. That's what it was. It wasn't as obvious as in America, where they're more direct about it, because
It's very micro in England.
But it is a
It's
white
present.
nationalist ideology in Britain and in France. That's what the empire was about. Superiority based
On race.
primarily on skin colour, which they happen to call civilization.
And you know, next time we touch that subject, we're going to talk about the Irish, the Scottish, the Welsh. Because
why was it black people, that Irish people were not thought of as white in the same way as Nigel Farage spoke about Eastern Europeans
All right.
as somehow not white?
We're going to handle that subject on a different day.
Even
right?
though physiologically they were white.
All right.
You see, now we're talking about colour
Okay,
as a
great.
political
Take away.
concept, not in terms of its
and I'm
reality.
Irish.
Oh, right, okay.
Right,
I've never heard that.
We're going to cover that subject on a different day. And just to sort of think it off, a lot of people from the Caribbean have names like Winston, they are all English names, right? And some of them are Irish names, some of them are Scottish
My
names.
name is Irish name,
right?
my first name.
Now, that's a big thing. Oh, actually, we might cover that in the next video cast, because we're in Black History. And Greg and G, right? You have a good grasp of the history and what's behind it all. So you can tell us what we've forgotten that we need to know. But meanwhile, let me say...
I am a Marxist.
Well, meanwhile, let us conclude, right? So from May, what would be your final words before we say goodbye, and maybe we'll come back again next week? What are you just going to say?
I've enjoyed listening.
Meaning she didn't get a chance to get a word in.
I've certainly enjoyed speaking.
Well, I enjoyed listening and speaking.
All right, and as you see, I've broken the trend from just doing this video cast of my own, standing in the middle of the park. Billy no mates. I got 3 mates along.
Oh yes, hey.
So we'll see you next time.
Yes,
And
bye.
don't forget, Red5599 TV. Hashtag Red5599 TV. You can catch up with a lot of stuff we're doing.
Cool. Peace out.
Bye bye.
Bye bye.